J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. It's a short week, but there's still plenty of going on in and around, and of course affecting our region as we get into, usually every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., but we're doing the whole Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week, in between the holidays and the time when, well, I didn't go anywhere out of town, but rest assured that if I did, I don't think those plans would have necessarily been on Southwest, so we still probably would have made it back here in time. So if any of you are particularly outside of the area and tuning into this while possibly stranded somewhere, good luck, Godspeed, and I hope you make it back safely. Last number I saw there was 5,400 flights canceled nationwide, and there's at least one Borderland high school band that is, or at least was over the weekend, trapped outside of the area in Chicago, as many flights were canceled. I had people, friends I knew, trying to get out of town to head to those kind of, festivities, all that kind of stuff, that ended up having never quite seen pictures of the El Paso International Airport like this, showing the it's not the lizard carpet anymore, though it'll always live in my heart that way, but that whole airway trying to get up to the gate area just packed with people trying to either rebook or get a refund. So yeah, it's been quite the weekend for anyone trying to travel out there, so hope you've made it through whatever you're doing safely. But glad you're here with us as we talk about the many things affecting us here in the Borderland. So travel is definitely kind of one of those subtexts going on this whole damn time. But then also, of course, coming out today, we do have that Title 42, as opposed to this kind of piecemeal and maybe like week-by-week situation, has now been extended. As of this afternoon, the Supreme Court voting 5-4 to allow it to remain into place until more or less February at this point. Of course, there are more challenges and things like that going into place that are definitely going to be affecting us here in the Borderlands, particularly with a lot of these policies, the weather we are facing. Yeah, we had some mild-ish, comparatively, weather going into this past weekend, though right now, I guess, would be the right way to say it. But it's going to get a little bit more woolly out there for the rest of this week. So yeah, we're still in the thick of it, and still very much kind of, I guess maybe this isn't a solution yet as much as Title 42 itself isn't a solution, but the border security and immigration situation very much still, well, I'll just call it in limbo for now, even if, yes, it has now been ordered to be in place again by the Supreme Court for a while longer, but this is not by any means done. Essentially, if we're looking at it again, I do believe it is until February. The justices will hear oral arguments in February, to be most exact, on whether states can intervene on this here, and a final decision on Title 42 is expecting in the coming months. So we've gotten past those kind of like deadline days, feeling like they are going to be significant ones, like we had with the whole December 21st day, that got pushed back, and now it is even further back. I mean, some interesting reaction coming in from, of course, across the borderland and across the country as well, including Texas Senator John Cornyn saying he was warned by Border Patrol that without Title 42, that he is saying that they would lose control of the border, and he's been lobbying to keep Title 42 in place until the administration comes up with a plan to deal with the surge of specifically illegal immigration. So there's a lot of moving parts there. No, we're not trying to still keep, beating the dead horse of immigration, but with this situation continuously changing, we've even got different situations on our streets here, including the fact that we have seen more issues besides Title 42 coming into place here, including more of the shelters, particularly the bigger ones and the bigger facilities that are expected to come online. The tent-like facility, Northeast El Paso, being put up by CBP, set to open mid-January. Some of the refitted or repurposed, I guess might be the right way to put it. EPISD schools, Bassett and Moorhead, if I'm not mistaken, expected to come online or be available in that capacity about the same time, a little bit into next month. So those kind of things still very much in flux. Anyway, Louis Panado saying that Title 42 doesn't mean squat. I mean, there is something to be said about the whole conception of it. I mean, there's been reporting in our area, including from who was it here? Want to say it was El Paso Matters, doing some interesting reporting on interviews with them, with some migrants and people seeking to cross, saying, if not now, then when? So, yeah, there's probably a lot of movement, particularly still coming there. There's also Flaco Jimenez. Hello, hope you had a nice holiday. Appreciate that. Hope you had one as well. Hope you all had a relaxing as much as possible one as we delve back into the major issues that we still got to deal with and in flux in the area. And I mean, we've got the whole disaster declaration that did end up, it was more or less during our show Friday, or not Friday, it was on Friday that City Council took up this issue. So there has, of course, been that emergency declaration, been extended for 30 days here in the city of El Paso in order to deal with these issues, among other things. So that's one of the many, many, many different parts that are moving with here. Though I will say, one of the things for El Paso Matters that I wanted to point out before I move on from them is that they did have an interesting article about the generosity of El Paso's volunteers in order to actually deal with, as much as you can, the humanitarian side of the situation, even as the policy issues are still in flux. And RJ way, kind of addressing that a little bit, get to that in a second here. I will say I'm continually impressed and proud of the humanitarian efforts and the volunteer donation, etc. efforts being put up by the general people of El Paso in order to deal with this, because whatever leaders, elected officials, etc. end up finally doing to deal with this or not, as the case may be, dealing with the issues on our streets and in this situation is, well, very important to me, and I'm glad others are stepping up for that as well, to not make this as a, well, what can we do? And not just allowing ourselves to be the victims of circumstance and still kind of dealing with it. I appreciate that greatly here. So RJ saying Title 42 is making a difference. How? Title 8 will be a joke also. And so the big surge is coming either way, and the country will be asking for billions to deal with it. I mean, the idea of Title 8 dealing with the going back into the system, it is supposed to be expedited, but given the fact of the matter is that we'll be looking at deferred or prioritized adjudication. Maybe not strictly in the amount, and RJ saying billions city by city. I don't think there's that many billions out there. I mean, the world population hit what, just 8 billion recently is the estimate, because there's not exactly a worldwide census, but demographic information that's collected, etc. So I'm not saying that there aren't billions out there, but I think if you start talking about more than one city at a time, you're starting talking about all the population being in the Western Hemisphere, which is beyond any political, logistical, emotional considerations. The logistical ones take precedent there, just is not feasible or possible. So, I mean, saying New York and Denver, again, I don't think we're anywhere near billions yet, but I guess I get your sentiment about being concerned about large amounts, and that is still on the order of thousands we are seeing a day, still having serious issues in our region and dealing with it. And yeah, money is also concerned, resources. That's why I'm saying the logistical almost ends up trumping everything else at that point in time, because if you can't feed, house, I mean, deal with people and make it that we're not just dealing with a massive humanity. It was put to me a while back, actually. There's an idea out there, a webcomic, believe it or not, that ends up being interestingly science-based on XKCD, if anyone knows it out there. And it has this kind of subsection. There's a couple of books actually out about it now called What If, putting forth these, kind of random science scenarios, such as, how many bullets would it take to stop a train just through sheer mass? And one of them was, what would the effect be of if, all of humanity was gathered in one place and I all jumped at once here? And there was, okay, RJ clarifying, you're talking about billions of dollars. That I will agree with you on, because, yeah, the costs of this are, and even just mounting the response, and anytime you're not actually doing something planned, and it ends up being we have to do this on an emergency basis, costs do increase, economies of scale, but in reverse. Anyway, what I'm trying to get to here is that there was this idea of, what if all of humanity was magically gathered in one area and everyone jumped at once? Would that do anything? Would it cause an earthquake, etc.? And there were some maybe minor aspects of it, but the more interesting actual aspect of the analysis was what would happen in the aftermath if, again, everyone were just, say, teleported into, I think they would be able to logistically fit in the airspace about the area of the island of Manhattan if everyone was within, finger touching distance of each other and no buildings around kind of thing. But what happens after then, so to speak? What happens after and all these literally billions of people then trying to get out of an area, and that being probably the worst humanitarian disaster the world would ever have known, as there are simply not the ability to have the mental logistics. I mean, sure, there will still be stores, restaurants, etc. in those areas, but not set up to deal with all of humanity at once. So it's an interesting consideration as part of it, but that one's more of a conjecture of it. But yeah, the funding and the money that's going to have to come along with this. I mean, we've seen they call it roughly $10 million, $6 million prepaid for this quarter, and then $3 million at least so far reimbursements coming out. Definitely a part of what we're seeing for the city of El Paso as part of that mounting response. But it looks like we're going to be in a further limbo state, so to speak, for a while longer, while these decisions now go through the Supreme Court to see what will happen in the end with Title 42, and or this would still be my preference if more immigration policy, particularly laws, could be passed in the meantime. I don't know if laws could actually be even just feasibly done with. I guess technically something could be passed immediately and dealt with. Whether or not that's politically possible is another question, which I still think leaves this down to the administration to take action on this if they can find the will, wherewithal, and reasoning to do so here. And so more conversation about that hypothetical there. I mean, yeah, good thing we're not on an island, exactly, saying one Congress would say we're going to tip over. Interesting point there. But in any case, got to take that first break of this hour right now. Coming out of this break, a little bit more about some of the other situations, including those travel situations out there and the many issues people are dealing with that. Well, it's a Texas-based company, but I don't think many people are claiming proudly that part of Texas right now. But talk more about that and a whole lot more after this break. You are, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone calls a little bit later in the hour, as we usually do. And, of course, comments coming in there, demonstrated already. Got a little bit more about those and more on what is going on and affecting us here in the Borderland after this break. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso freeways, traffic's backing up on the 10 eastbound after a crash after Executive Center Boulevard. That's blocking the right lane. Expect delays on Gateway North at Kenworthy, an accident with El Paso police on the scene, and an accident reported northbound Mesa Street just before Donovan Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is brought to you by Positive Coaching Alliance. Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
Happy holidays. My podcast on iHeart has brought me together with friends both old and new. Want to know how fashion designer Michael Kors built his iconic American brand? Aren't you curious how rapper Snoop Dogg and I really became good friends? All the answers to these questions and more are on the Martha Stewart podcast. Catch up on the Martha Stewart podcast this holiday season on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Mario Courtney Lopez here with a fresh breath tip for the holidays.
We all love the parties, friends and family, but up close moments can be awkward.
Yeah, they can. Smart Mouth mouthwash gives you 24 hours of fresh breath confidence with just 2 rinses a day.
Smart Mouth is clinically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath all day, and rinsing at night even stops morning breath.
Wow.
Give yourself the gift of holiday confidence with Smart Mouth. Find Smart Mouth at your favorite retailer or at smartmouth.com/radio.
For my small bookstore to thrive, I can't just sell books. So I created a radio ad at iHeartAdBuilder.com to tell everyone about our author events, our story hours for kids, and our amazing lattes. Now we're busier than ever. I'd call that a success story.
A custom radio ad from iHeart Ad Builder is the fast, affordable way to drive customers to your business. Put the power of radio to work for you. Get started now at iHeartAdBuilder.com.
Updated COVID vaccines are here, just in time for the season that brings us all closer. Just in time for added protection against the original COVID virus and Omicron. Just in time for crowded stores and great big family dinners. Updated COVID protection is here. And if you haven't had a vaccine since September, it's time to give yourself the gift of updated protection. Find updated COVID vaccines at vaccines.gov. We can do this. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one. That's where most of the comments come in. Don't worry, we don't forget about the YouTube there over either. So similar pages, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, you can also find us on if that's more your bag. Well, whatever the best place, wherever you can see us, works best for you, that's the right place for you to be as we continue to talk about the things that affect us here in the Borderland, even as it is the short week. And getting a good dose of sarcasm there, I want to say here, John Browson, saying, Andrew, please take another week off. Too much work is hard for your mental and physical health. I know that this is the toughest media job ever. Just ever so slightly, a little bit of sarcasm there. I do assume. Listen, we took Friday, Monday off. We're doing the same thing for the observed holidays. So we're taking the holidays off here. Otherwise, sometimes we've been on assignment, so to speak. But you showed me someone else that's doing 2+ hours of online stuff without a script a day, and in local area anyway. And I'd love to have a further conversation about how they maintain their sanity. They think I'm doing a pretty good job in the meantime. But no, it has not been a week. That was an option, but we're still doing the shows here for y'all, because even though this is usually okay in news person or social media journalists, etc. speak, this is considered the dead week. This is the week when, well, you better have all of your reports, all of your stories already written and ready to go, because no one's answering phones, no one is going to be coming into the studio, letting you get an interview, or nothing happens, some combination between. And I think we've, not intentionally or through any kind of miracle effort we were able to put on or anything, but that appears to have been bucked a bit with a lot going on in this week, as we also have Angel Rueda chiming in there, along with Aluthanato, John Browselton, RJ, and a few more dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Chris Martin, James Holmes, Robert Haynes, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. Do appreciate that. So there's again, there's a lot going on there. So with Title 42 staying in place until at least February, some of those headlines that are now going out and about. But again, there's going to be more to be discussed there, more oral arguments potentially heard. So we've got this kind of simmering situation on our border, probably going to be continuing for the foreseeable future, with continuing probably changes with what happens with the emergency declarations, the actual presence at the border, what resources are being marshaled in our area. And it's been an interesting situation that, more specifically, all the shelters going on have been, well, seeing a bit of a mixed bag. I will say that. I mean, more specifically, I want to say it was, let me see here. El Paso Matters further reporting their article titled, Many Venezuelan Migrants Are Not Allowed into El Paso's Federally Funded Shelters. And that means that, specifically including not the city's convention center, that there are more facilities in the area that are opening up, but saying that they are not able to be a part of it. So that's a interesting part, and why there might be. It's been the conversation we've been having since last week about why there has been maybe a reluctance in some cases. Well, while facilities were being opened, they were still seeing individuals on the streets. And that might be at least a part of the puzzle here. Also might be further implications of the idea that there is unforeseen consequences coming from use of that. Not sure there. Ed Clore also chiming in there. And don't worry, if we're going to be needing any fill-in, we'll be having professional replacement done with that there. So no worries about that. We're not taking volunteers at this point in time. Let's just put it this way. You can certainly chime in if you want to, but that's about where it ends. Archang asking, cooties part of it. I mean, large group of people in small areas, I can also see implications from that and why others may want to avoid it. But I think it's more the idea that, well, what if this is, there's strings attached, so to speak. I haven't spoken with any individuals who actually have decided not to do it. There's some reporting going on in the area, but I think the idea that some have been turned away may make it more likely that others who even could technically qualify for any reasons or deciding not to, saying, well, if they got turned away, what's the chance that I won't either? In any case, that situation continues to go on. And more specifically, another article from our news partners there at KFOX 14. Migrants remain sleeping on the streets of El Paso, many wary of accepting help from the city because again, going to the convention center from the Customs and Border Protection, they do have to have a CBP paperwork, and they're afraid to be turning into federal authorities and have instead chosen to stay on the streets, according to their reporting there. Specifically quoting one individual, Jesus Valles, shared that he migrated from Venezuela and has been sleeping the past few nights on the streets as he waits for his family to send him the rest of the money for his bus fare. Saying from him, quote, I went to a shelter, but they told me no, it's just for women and children, so we're here waiting for our family to send us some money so we can continue our trip. So there's been a lot of demand at more local shelters as well. And the Catholic Church has definitely been, the Diocese of Migrant and Refugee Services, the Diocese of El Paso, have been setting up their own facilities as well. Well, let's just say some of the funding, particularly that the roughly $10 million we've been talking about, isn't necessarily being pushed that way. Hopefully more coordination can happen that way as well. Marky Mandingo saying Christmas was awesome, and sure, I had one too. I didn't shave the beard. I mean, we keep this going for a bit here. We keep it trimmed, don't worry. But if you want to shave yours, that's entirely your prerogative. But we're mostly in radio, even if we do this video thing that we do. So yeah, we keep the beard around. It's, I don't know, maybe not a signature, but hey, keep it going for the moment anyway. And asking me to have a beard contest, I would be very interested to know what that would entail and what the recommendations are. I had a friend back in college try to convince me to join the Beard of the Month Club, which was essentially you grow out your beard for the better part of the month, and then you shave it into a various style, like mutton chops were the first one that he ended up doing. So you want to build the canvas out, so to speak, and then do something with it for only like a week, and then you got to start letting it grow out again. So it didn't quite seem reasonable to me, but more power to you if that's the kind of thing you're interested in. Anyway, besides the situation we are definitely still seeing on the streets, at least one other thing going on again, what's going on with the Southwest cancellations affecting, oh, geez. I mean, there were the majority of the flight cancellations happening early Tuesday. 2,890 flights were actually canceled as of Tuesday. Marky already declaring his defeat there in the beard contest there. I mean, again, you set the terms and I'll see if we agree to them and then we can go further into it. But again, situation going on with Southwest Airlines specifically, there were the vast majority of flights that were canceled as of early today. About 2,500 out, again, let's just call it 2,900 were Southwest specifically, because I mean, they are of course blaming storms, and there certainly have been a lot of weather out there. People I knew who were coming into town right before the holiday managed to get here safely, the ones I know anyway, so knock on wood that you and yours are safe as well. But there also has been more than a little bit I've been seeing online about there being, I mean, they canceled 70% of their flights on Monday, 60% on Tuesday, and just for comparison there, the American, United, Delta, and JetBlue, their cancellations were between 0 and 2% by a Tuesday. So this is leading to, not terrifically unsurprisingly, a whole lot of ticked off people, but even beyond that, there are actually now federal investigations being looked at there. President Joe Biden specifically saying that they are going to be asking any travelers affected by this to go to the Department of Transportation site to make sure that their rights are being upheld, particularly to compensation due to canceled flights and delays and strandings, all that kind of stuff. So, and there's more federal investigations potentially also being dealt with there. Promising to the White House promising to hold Southwest accountable for the thousands of delays and cancellations over the holidays. I mean, they're also calling it for all major airlines, but the meltdown has been pretty well focused on, Southwest has been one of the bigger boogeymen, and specifically the Department of Transportation also saying it will be examining whether Southwest Airlines could have done more to prevent widespread flight cancellations the day after Christmas, and still ongoing even into today here. So that's going to take us through that next break right now. Coming out of this break, going to be talking about a few of the other things, including one thing I want to mention, what the El Pasoan of the Year nominated, or the decision has been made by El Paso Inc., as we had some preview of that. So I want to at least mention that as we get into this short week and get closer to getting on those phone lines. So taking that next break right now, and after this break, talking a little bit more about some of those other things going on here in the Borderland and getting close to those phone lines. So in any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Updates. Police are working to figure out what led to a woman's death after her body was discovered in a car in West El Paso. The discovery was made in the Kern Place neighborhood. That's where officers say a man was also found with serious injuries in a driveway just off of Stanton and Gregory late yesterday afternoon. Police say both the victims had deep cuts on their bodies. This is a developing story, and you can count on CBS 4 to keep you up to date as we learn more. Meantime, police are still looking for the person who stabbed and killed a 70-year-old woman in her home. Investigators say the stabbing happened just after 5 p.m. on Christmas Day in central El Paso near the intersection of Truman and Lackland. They'll only confirm a woman was stabbed and taken to the hospital where she later died, but provided no other information about her or her alleged attacker. El Paso police are asking anyone who may have information about her killer to give them a call. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Stop and go traffic on I-10 eastbound between Paisano and the 54 Patriot with 10-minute delays. That's all due to an accident blocking the right lane, I-10 eastbound after Executive Center Boulevard. Expect delays there. Gateway North at Kenworthy. Police trying to clear that accident. A stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder, I-10 westbound at Hawkins Boulevard. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our Tuesday's pretty much our last day where we have some pretty quiet weather because we've got 3 systems coming in through the rest of this week and into the weekend. Each one will continue to bring in stronger winds, a slight drop in temperatures, as well as a chance for some rain. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has everything you need to get organized this year. Right now, a 2023 line desk calendar is $3.99 and online desk calendar is just $4.99. In-store only, offer ends 12/31. Make this year your year with Staples, the working and learning store.
Patrick Tuttle of Coldwell Banker Heritage knows a secret. It's the power of the Coldwell Banker Real Vitalize program, which helps you fix up your home for sale with no out-of-pocket or participation costs to you. Home improvements, cleanup, and repair costs are covered and are paid back when your home sells. There's no catch, no hidden fees, interest, or markups. Let Patrick Tuttle of Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate in El Paso help you real-vitalize before selling. Call him today at 915-585-7777. The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hey Texas, did you know that individuals living with serious mental illness are more susceptible to severe COVID-19? Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov for vaccination resources to help reduce the risk and keep yourself and your fellow Texans informed and protected this holiday season. Stay healthy, Texas.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org. This report is sponsored by unbound.org.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, but also, of course, Facebook, other pages on Facebook as well. But then we got YouTube, the Talk El Paso channel, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Either of those names, most of those places, and maybe even beyond. Those are the ones we're in charge of anyway. You can get cross-posted other ways. Any case, wherever you're watching us, hearing us, interacting, etc., is the right place for you as we continue our mission to talk about the things affecting us here in the Borderlands. A couple of minor things I want to make sure to mention there is that even as we are in the aftermath of Christmas, we did the plastic tree thing ourselves, but they are doing City of El Paso free recycling of live Christmas trees in case you got that over at the Citizen Collection stations, open Tuesday through Saturday, and it's available through February 11th. But don't do the usual El Paso thing of waiting until the last minute like everyone else is, and it does begin today specifically. So if you got that, and you are wondering why your allergies are flaring up, which is what we always did before we ended up ditching it and get the plastic tree. Yeah, there you go. And there's how to deal with it. I do believe they'll turn into mulch. I think you can get some mulch in the end if you want it, but one way to deal with it. So continuing situations going on with, of course, some of the travel things. And Fluctuating Menace asking, because the airlines control the weather. So in reference to the whole Southwest Airlines thing, I mean, sure, I've had flights that have been canceled in the past. Again, I wasn't traveling, thank goodness, this time around, and probably wouldn't have taken Southwest anyway. Again, further probably in my favor, because that's the juxtaposition, of course, that Southwest was looking between 60 and 70% of its flights being canceled versus 0 to 2% of most other major carriers. So there's a couple of questions that end up coming up there about that. I mean, if one person's like, oh man, this is inconvenience, but we'll manage, and the other, you look on the other side and it's a raging dumpster fire, you might wonder, okay, what's going on there? And maybe more than just, I'm sure the weather didn't help, but it seems like more is at play there. So we'll see what's going on with Southwest. I've had several people on my timeline swearing it off forever for good, taking that airline. So we'll see. I mean, people I knew who were stranded in places for a couple of days while looking to do it. John Brazelton suggesting if you're really in a hurry there, start with Marky Mandingo saying, buy a Cessna if you don't like the wait. I'm sure a flight is less than what a Coyote charges. Interesting comparison. I think a lot of these flights were more or less domestic issues, but if someone was needing to get out and a Southwest International flight, maybe because John Brazelton then says used aircraft are going for $100K plus. My buddy just bought $100,000 plus. And Marky Mandingo saying pretty cheap, better than millions. I mean, sure, but also consider the fact that you need to know how to fly the plane to begin with. And this doesn't sound like a flight's canceled, better buy a plane. If you're not like ready for this, and frankly, if you got the ability to fly the plane anyway and to buy one on a whim, why weren't you doing that in the first place? I'm not saying that someone out there couldn't possibly use that, but I'm not going to call this a life hack level of advice here, if you take my meaning. In any case, hoping that everyone is that needs to, specifically also able to get to where you need. One other thing I want to mention here before we end up taking that next break and getting into and opening up the phone lines as we do. We did, of course, with the downtown convention center now being repurposed as that temporary shelter for about 1,000, even if there are some apparently logistical or legal issues involving with it, and why there are still some out in the streets that have crossed the border recently. The fan fiesta that was going to be held there has now been moved to Freedom Crossing over at Fort Bliss. Of course, this is going to be happening on Thursday, right ahead of the game. So it'll be happening at 4 p.m. on Thursday. It is free and open to the public. There are, of course, the technicalities of getting on to Fort Bliss that you'll want to make sure to pay attention to, including entering through the Buffalo Soldier, Cassidy, or Sheridan Gates left lanes. Must have valid identification to get there. You must also have it be real ID compliant via DHS policy. Any questions about that? I do believe anyone here in Texas is good to go. I knew New Mexico had some issues recently, in recent years anyway, but just double check, make sure, particularly if you haven't renewed your license within the last better part of a decade, you might want to take a look at that. So that'll be happening again this coming Thursday over at Freedom Crossing. So some updates on some of the major events going on in and around the region as of this week here. So needing to take that next break right now, we'll go ahead and get into that. So we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines as a part of it. So if you want to jump in the line, add your 2 cents on the many, many, many things going on or affecting our region, certainly can do so. That number to call is 915-544-5876. 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break. Also taking more of the comments. You can keep doing that if it's preferred. But again, number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Stop and go traffic on I-10 eastbound between Paisano and the 54 Patriot with 10-minute delays. That's all due to an accident blocking the right lane, I-10 eastbound after Executive Center Boulevard. Expect delays there. Gateway North at Kenworthy. Police trying to clear that accident. A stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder, I-10 westbound at Hawkins Boulevard. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Doniphan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the one and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Doniphan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
I never write reviews, but Navage is so amazing, I had to leave one. Nothing's ever cleared out my sinuses as well. I'm blown away by how Navage works. That's a review from Carrie, and it's one of over 100,000 online testimonials praising Navage. I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I've talked about flushing out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs. How Navage's powered suction can help you breathe better, and how your nose is the body's air filter, and Navage will clean it out. But don't take my word for it. What do people like Chad say, who wrote, Navage has helped clear out my nasal passages every single night. My wife says my snoring has gone way down. Snorefest be gone, unquote. Navage is the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million customers to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the brand reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, particularly where the Thunderdome comments come in, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. conversations going on over there at Pace. But of course, we do have those phone lines open now. If you want to get on there, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 547-654-4KTSM. Got plenty to talk about, plenty going on and still affecting us in this region. I mean, yeah, immigration, border security, Title 42, all those things. Definitely top of mind in a lot of ways, and be hard-pressed to find something I think more impacting at this moment, but there's still plenty of other things going on either in or affecting us here in the Borderland, including a little bit more maybe clarity on what's going on with the entire arena issue, with that actual items being placed on the agenda for City Council for the very first meeting of the year, but that's another one we'll get into as well. And I just want to mention, as I did say I would, that El Paso Inc. has named after their nominations we talked about earlier in the month, their El Pasoan of the Year. They named Woody and Gail Hunt Philanthropists as the El Pasoans of the Year, I guess would be the right way to put it. And then also have Zool Bailey as the El Paso Inc. Community Spirit Award for 2022. So just a couple of things and notes from there as we do talk to them about their coverage and reporting. But let's get to those phone lines. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM is the number to call if you want to get on the line. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, you have a good Christmas?
Oh, it was a very good, relaxing-ish one here. I meant to post up some of the pictures of what we did for the Christmas made of beef Wellington for the family there. I'll post those up on social media a little bit later. It was a good time had by. I hope you had a good one as well.
We did all right. Have you heard about all the election challenges going on in Arizona and Georgia?
Yeah, those are the main ones I'm aware of. I mean, the whole Kerry Lake challenges and some interesting back and forth going on injunctions or fees being looked at here. I will say I've not paid as much attention to the Georgia ones, but I'm aware of them.
Yeah, it seems like in the trial as shown in Arizona with the Kerry Lake trial, that the ballots in Maricopa County on election day were supposed to be made in 20-inch form, but instead printed in 19-inch form. And these ballots were not accepted by the voting machines, and voters were told to place them in their ballots in a box, and they would be counted later.
Mm-hmm.
Just, when you put your voting thing into your election machine, it's supposed to line up,
right?
And all the voting machines were saying no, they don't line up. So they said, there's something matter with your ballot. The people kept on putting them in, and they just couldn't get them to work. So they said, don't worry about it. We'll just put them in a box, and we'll take care of them. And it turns out that in the trial also it says that they had tabulation issues at 132 voting centers throughout Arizona, and Maricopa County evidently they are supposed to have a chain of custody,
right?
And it turns out that the county delivery receipt documents that were supposed to be important in chain of custody were misplaced by the people that were running the elections.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they should have done maybe more than a bit of a dry run out there. I mean, sure, technical issues can show up, and which is why whenever we've had elections, particularly in our area, to make sure if there are any issues, it's, issues with your documentation or the issues with the voting here, to demand a provisional ballot, because that is supposed to be the day of remedy for anyone out there. And sure, there are, legitimate questions to be looked at too, by these trials, investigations, et cetera, that I would say need to be gotten to the bottom of, because confidence in this and making sure it's done correctly is a very important part of it. And so, yeah, my understanding of course, was out there in Arizona not too long after that. I was actually in Arizona and sitting in on Garrett Lewis's show there when there was the whole Kirsten Sinema thing going on that we haven't talked about too much here, but her announcing her independency. I don't know what's the right word. That she is an independent, will caucus with independent, will still caucus with Democrats, but consider herself an independent. That was going on at that point in time. So that took most of the air in the room on that subject. But yeah, to my understanding, there were issues with printers and other day of things that, at the very least, is a very bad look for a major county like Maricopa.
Yeah, and it is also being there's challenges going on in Georgia that the judges have determined that the people do have standing, and that they're going to look into some of the things that went on in Georgia also. And what's kind of interesting is this is what what should have happened at the end of the 2020 election. Trump was demanding that everything be looked at before it was certified and everything else. What he should have done is exactly what Kari Lake is doing. She's bringing to light that there was a lot of shenanigans going on, and that especially on election day, when most of they estimate 75% of the people in line were for Kari Lake that day. And and if Trump would have just accepted the results and then challenged them afterwards, we would probably find that there was a lot of problems with the elections in 2020. I mean, I sat there and listened to all the hearings in Arizona, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Georgia, and Nevada, all these places. And there was a lot of evidence that were brought out in these investigations that there was a lot of problems with the elections. And the problem was that what the Supreme Court said is they did, they weren't going to overturn the election, and they didn't have any proof that there was a problem. So if Trump would have just said, okay, the election's over, and then gone, and all these people would have come in there and took their time to show all the shenanigans that went on, then there would have been a lot of people very upset about the election of 2020.
I can see what you're saying there, and I will say that hindsight being 2020, no pun intended, that maybe the way it was gone about, and I mean some of the well-publicized phone calls, those kind of things, maybe shouldn't have been handled in such a way that a different tact on it, particularly focusing on errors in the way things were gone through, polling places not being available. I mean, those are of legitimate concern regardless of whatever the kind of overarching situation is, because if people aren't able to vote, they are incapable of doing so for whatever variety of technical reasons. Those are big questions that frankly need to be focused on regardless of, again, whatever is going on nationally, because if people aren't able to do so or have a lack of confidence that their vote as cast due to any kind of technical error isn't able to do so, it's not a good situation, regardless of what are the implications are of it. It's when it starts coming down to, well, if it helps the people that I like politically, then it's fine, we'll leave it in place. Or if it hurts the people I like politically, no, then we definitely have to change it. It's something that needs to be dealt with regardless. Again, the most legitimate parts that came up from some of the other parts of it that they were putting forth in the argumentation was about the way laws were de facto changed in the lead up to it. There were certain state court decisions that probably should have been looked at a little bit more closely, probably gotten up to the state Supreme Court in those cases, but those weren't really the tacks that they went with it, I got to say.
Yeah, and there's a lot of countries throughout the world that have paper ballots and they don't have anything with computers, and they have their elections certified and everything by almost the day of the election. They don't go on for weeks and weeks trying to determine who won.
I mean, having spoken,
if we went back
to
paper ballots, that's obviously what we need to do.
Well, we do have that hybrid system locally
it's
anyway.
A dirty business and everything. They would have to, but for years we did it, and other countries can do it. Why can't the United States of America?
Well, we do have that hybrid system locally.
I don't think the will of our government want what the will of the people are to be heard.
No, I get what you're saying there about there being, I mean, there's been implications about the way that certain election offices or, ballot places or drop-off, things like that are available or not in certain areas has certain partisan implications from it. Frankly, any level of that being a part of our systems is despicable at its very basic level, because if it's not about, I mean, in any kind of election laws, department, et cetera, making it so that the people who are eligible to cast their vote are able to do so most efficiently, judiciously, and with as much information as they need to be able to make sure that they actually effectuate this. Like, I don't want this to be anything besides an apathy problem. Like, we got enough problems dealing with that here. And we, of course, do have the kind of hybrid system in our local area where we do have, it is a paper ballot. You can see it as it gets printed out to you, but it's then got a digital scanning, but then the physical ballot does still exist for verification purposes, to be specific with it. So having spoken with some of our local election officials about it, not elected officials, those in charge of the elections locally, that has been a push for several years, and both to a way to streamline it, because I do want to make sure it's done accurately. You're talking about the verification process there, but I can also see about okay, why does it take so long? If we may have gotten a bit used to the idea of everything being decided on election night when you start getting into these challenges. I mean, like the recounts, or, I mean, runoffs is a separate thing, but I mean, it's been more or less the standard in our area and across much of the United States that people, if they see that it's totally not going their way, they will tend to concede. And that's why we think we've gotten used to this idea of election nights being more decided. Part of what I think actually needs to be done then is that, and this might be a little bit more tricky, but I know it's been discussed in other areas, not necessarily Texas as much, as allow pre-counting of ballots, so to speak. So on election night, we do have the, totals coming out from early voting, and that's kind of in place. Some places don't allow it. You can't even crack open those numbers or those ballots before election night actually happens. So we're a little bit more ahead of that in our area, I guess. But still, some of those things making it so that a clearer picture is available on election night, I would say, would probably be a good confidence boost in my mind.
Andrew, do you have faith in our elections?
I mean, I don't have any issues with our local ones.
All the things that you know, all the things that have been going on, you actually have faith in that every vote is counted?
The only thing I can really speak about with much knowledge and experience, having talked with people locally, is our local elections. But to the larger part of it here is that, okay, I will say that when it comes to 2020, the way the laws were handled, particularly as there were, again, the court decisions, does lead to some level of concern about if the laws are on the books, but they can be changed versus, I mean, yes, very serious circumstances, the pandemic, the restrictions coming with it, etc., were majorly extenuating circumstances. But the fact that there was not much able to be weighed in by the legislature does lead to questions that I do think need to be put to bed before we, because this kind of situation is going to keep coming up, those level of questions of, well, was this done correctly or rightly? And I think that needs to be a major focus of legislatures, courts, election officials, to make sure that this is something that can be not exactly incontrovertible, because there's always going to be some, fiddly in the system. I mean, needing to be verified, those kind of things. Any system designed by man is never going to be inherently perfect, but making sure that people are confident in it needs to be a big factor of how this works going forward, I will say. So I will say that much. So tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. We got to hit that top of the hour. Make sure I don't get in trouble. Haven't actually gotten in trouble, but don't want to get anywhere near it. So if you want to get on the line, remember that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We'll be back after this break and the top of the hour news with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash on the I-10 westbound is slowing down the westbound I-10 between Airway and the 54 Patriot with 27-minute delays. Watch for that accident. It's blocking two right lanes, I-10 westbound at Reynolds. Slow traffic on the 10 eastbound, transbound to the Patriot, 7-minute delays. That earlier crash, I-10 eastbound after Executive Center Boulevard, is cleared. All lanes are back open. And Joe Battle southbound at Montwood, an accident's blocking the left lane. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
New on Curiosity Stream, we've conquered orbit, landed on the moon. Now NASA's after the secrets of our planetary partners.
This mission is looking for the origins of the planets.
See what surprises they found on the Lucy mission, origins of the solar system. Plus, it's bull shark versus African crocodile in an attempt to film nature's most vicious matchup for the first time.
This is insane.
Don't miss when shark meets crocodile. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. And for a limited time, get 40% off our annual plan. That's just $1 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio. I'm Chris Coraggio. The Supreme Court is keeping in place a public health rule which has been used to expedite deportations at the border. Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas has been lobbying to keep Title 42 in place until the administration comes up with a plan to deal with the surge of illegal immigration.
I've written multiple letters asking for a plan to transition from Title 42, and I've received zero. No response.
Texas and 18 other Republican-led states had sued to keep Title 42 in place. The Supreme Court ruling, keeping the status quo, is a partial victory. Justices will hear oral arguments in February on whether the states can intervene. President Biden is promising to hold airlines accountable for thousands of delays and cancellations over the holidays. One woman at the Atlanta airport details her travel nightmare.
We literally spent half of Christmas Day at the airport finding another flight, and we actually drove 6.5 hours here to Atlanta just so that we could find another flight to get back to LAX.
The president on Twitter urged Americans affected by cancellations to visit the Department of Transportation's website to see if they're entitled to compensation. The agency said it will be examining whether Southwest Airlines could have done more to prevent widespread flight cancellations the day after Christmas. The airline canceled at least 5,400 flights over 2 days, leaving people stranded and without bags. Today, the airline canceled more than 60% of its flights. Southwest officials say its crew scheduling process is partly to blame. Controversy continues to swirl around New York Congressman-elect George Santos, who admitted to adding a little bit of fluff to his resume. Some of his future constituents in Great Neck are not happy about it. Santos confirmed he never graduated from college, worked directly for Wall Street firms, never owned property, and his grandparents never escaped the Nazis. Meantime, incoming Long Island Congressman Nick LaLota called for a House investigation into Santos, while Santos says he will not resign. I'm Chris Coraggio, NBC News Radio. A celebrity-driven bail group is shutting down for now after being sued for helping release somebody who allegedly had shot a waiter. Reports say the Bail Project, whose supporters include Danny Glover, John Legend, and Richard Branson, is currently restructuring its operations. This after the suspect was released courtesy of the group after it paid his $3,000 bail. Shortly after the newly freed man allegedly opened fire in a Las Vegas restaurant, shooting a waiter, the victim is now suing the Bail Project. Fans of the late Pittsburgh Steeler legend Franco Harris are saying their goodbyes. A viewing that's open to the public is being held inside Acrisure Stadium. Harris died last week at the age of 72. His family has asked that those wanting to pay tribute to the Steelers great make a donation to either the Pittsburgh Promise or the Franciscan Sisters of the Poor Foundation. Director James Cameron says he cut out 10 minutes of gun violence in Avatar: The Way of Water because it made him sick to his stomach. Speaking to Esquire Middle East, Cameron said when he looks back at films he's made, he doesn't know if he would make them now due to what's happening with guns in our society. The director said he doesn't know if he would want to fetishize the gun like he did on a couple of the Terminator movies. Cameron says he's happy now to live in New Zealand, where assault rifles are banned after a mosque shooting that happened a couple of years ago. The Mega Millions jackpot stands at $565 million ahead of tonight's big drawing. The cash prize is about $294 million. The prize has grown so large because it's been more than 3 months since anyone has matched all 6 numbers. The odds of winning the jackpot are roughly 1 in 302 million. Numbers are drawn at 11 p.m. Eastern. A Florida couple now has a Christmas memory that's going to last forever. Nick Day says his wife Shayna came to him 21 years ago with some bad news.
She came to me one day and said, I think I lost my ring. Now it's gone. I think I may have flushed it down the toilet on accident.
However, the episode has a storybook ending thanks to a plumber who recently found the ring while replacing the toilet. Nick's mother, Renee, said she recognized the ring, and Shayna couldn't believe what had happened. I'm Chris Coraggio, NBC News Radio.
The music we listen to all year long. The anthems that were our soundtrack for 2022. And the stars who made the songs we love will all be celebrated March 27th, live from Los Angeles.
Let's get it started.
Get ready for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Awards, coming back to Fox.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International.
Drought, war, and rising food prices have doubled the number of families facing malnutrition. You can help.
$50 provides a food kit to feed a family for a month. Just text the word radio to 97646.
Hey, Texas. There are approximately 950,000 individuals in Texas living with a serious mental illness, which is an individual risk factor for severe COVID-19. If you or someone you know is living with a serious mental health condition, such as schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, make sure they know where to go this holiday season to stay safe and healthy. Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov to find resources and location information for vaccine providers near you. Stay healthy, Texas.
Follow the Bible in a Year with Jack Graham podcast today. Begin your New Year's resolution with the Bible and see why millions have already started Bible in a Year with Jack Graham.
This podcast was created to help you solidify your faith as you experience the story of the Bible through live action recordings and emotional orchestral music.
Listen to Bible in a Year with Jack Graham on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of discussions we're having about the issues affecting us here in the Borderland. Yeah, the dead week, not so much actually looking that way, as we are in this a lot of issues going on, including I hope we're not talking about voting for me. I have not ever been on a ballot ever since my very ill-advised run for, what was it, like student council back in high school. It was on a whim. I didn't actually do any campaigning, and surprise Pikachu face here when I didn't actually end up winning. Because, yeah, I didn't actually do anything about it. And that was my first introduction about politics doesn't care about your feelings, cares about what you've actually done and what you've organized and how you've talked to people, etc. You can't, wishes and prayers and all those things don't necessarily get you that far unless you put your faith into action, so to speak. You go the whole, God helps those who help themselves sort of concept there. So, I mean, if you believe in the power of prayer, more power to you, but I hope you're putting it into action as well. In any case, a lot of conversation online there. A lot of people chiming in, including Aloop and Adam Marky Mendingo, Robert Gable, Ida Beza Gardner, hello, and wave to you as well. RJ and Robert Gable. Is there an RJJ? Is there as well? Am I having a cross-eyed situation? In any case, dropping those likes and reacts that we do appreciate as well. Ion Graham, Richard Janicek, Marky Mendingo, Chris Martin, James Holmes, Robert Haynes, Franco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes, as well as Angel Rueda. Do appreciate that, as it helps with all those algorithmic things. So a lot of conversation to be had there, but of course we have those phone lines open, full up at the moment, as is usually this place at the case at this point during the show. But if you want to get on the line a little bit later, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side with us on the line here right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm not going to talk about logical fallacies or anything like that. What I think is very important right now is what's happening on the border and border security.
Sure, certainly. I mean, there's a lot of movement and a lot of issues going on there. And there's a finer point I want to break down a little bit more into tomorrow about what I think potential solutions could be. But as we're waiting for that decision on what will or may not be happening with Title 42, there's a lot there's a lot of time to deal with this and for more issues to come up between now and February.
Well, one of the things I'm sure you know from the local media outlets is that these shelters that are being set up by the city of El Paso, they are only taking certain individuals, those I believe with refugee status that have paperwork, and those that are asylum seekers and have paperwork.
Correct. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier. So there have been some cases because essentially any populations to which Title 42 would apply, which people may recall was expanded to include Venezuelans after essentially an emergency agreement was done with the government of Mexico. They are not, they can't apply there. So yeah, it's basically only those that are awaiting asylum trial. So were admitted despite Title 42, essentially. And so that is by no means all of them is the situation that we're finding out on the streets here of El Paso.
Yes. So my next question to people out there and to the Biden administration. So what do we do with these individuals? As the county judge said, let them in. We can handle it.
Yeah, and that was a question that we had even as of last week, as we were coming into this and we were having this back and forth and the whole, anticipation of December 21st and then December 21st getting pushed off for a bit, waiting the decision that again came out today from the Supreme Court saying, no, we're putting this on hold for a while longer. That is the removal or end of Title 42, because there are, of course, lawsuits that have been filed by particularly immigration advocates or, asylum advocates, organizations involved in that. And again, specifically the advocacy for it. That's why this has come to the point that it has. It started with them suing about that. They're going through several of the court processes. There were a couple of federal judges that came up there in a few different places around the country, if I'm remembering correctly, and now has ended up, as these things often do, to the Supreme Court. So with all that as prelude now, the situation is that Title 42 doesn't apply evenly across the board anymore. There's conversation, of course, going on with the government of Mexico involving who they will or won't accept being expelled back into their country. So that's leaving us with, if we're doing the U.S., that is, doing Title 42 expulsions, to either transport them back to their full country of origin or coming up with new deals with the country of Mexico. Again, there's a lot more to delve into there that I'm not going to try and make this discussion and your call entirely about. But yeah, the fact of the matter is that these shelters that are being set up with, government funding, particularly the roughly $10 million that has come in from FEMA and related agencies, either related to kind of prepaying for the local response that's going to need to be mounted, or what has been already spent in previous quarters by the city of El Paso, is, it's not applying to it here. So it's even less of a solution than may have already thought to have been.
Granted. Well, I do have to commend Governor Greg Abbott for trying to secure the border. And I know Commissioner Stout was against the border being militarized. Well, it's not militarized. If the people in his party in Washington would do their job, we wouldn't be in this situation. One point that I might suggest that it may sound like a hard line deal is, hey, go after Mexico economically. They don't want to cooperate. Suspend their economic aid. Hey, freeze a few of their assets. Let's see how they respond.
There's a whole conversation going on about, playing hardball, as you're suggesting there, that we've seen in a way. There's the whole, we've got the now random inspections of cross-border cargo traffic that has begun being expanded. Some checkpoints that are being set up essentially for, again, like cargo trucks and train travel. I think it's primarily cargo trucks is the way it's been applied to my understanding, at least in our area. But of course, there was the half a year ago at this point, what happens, a few months back, of what the governor did when he called for DPS to be doing enhanced inspections of all cross-border cargo traffic coming through. And that became pretty obviously, as much as there was a lot of analysis and griping going on about what this is doing with the flow of goods, the flow of, like, say, perishables, specifically, produce rotting on trucks, kind of those specific things. But then it did, I will say, relatively quickly, as opposed to like legislation which can take months or even years. It was in the order of days, or at the most a couple of weeks, that there were then these kind of bilateral agreements put into place with the different governors of the Mexican border states to Texas. So that was an interesting example of how hardball can be played in that case, and whether or not the administration would be willing to go to anywhere near that, or just continue applying pressure that it has. Clearly there have been some ways it's been able to. Again, the larger example being, again, that Venezuelan situation where they were included in Title 42, not unilaterally, but based on agreements that were then put into place with the government of Mexico. So it's not out of the question, but whether or not that level of pressure can be applied again and successfully, I think is probably one of the questions leading to why we haven't seen necessarily as much movement coming out of the administration, despite whatever is going on with Title 42 in the courts.
Well, like I said before, Biden caves to these immigration lobbyists and these advocacy groups. But my suggestion to Governor Abbott, for what it's worth, don't cave in, don't apologize to these left-wing loonies. You apologize or cave in, it's a sign of weakness. Anyway, Andrew, I'll give somebody else a chance to talk. I turn the mic back over to you.
Yeah, I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you.
And I hope you had a Merry Christmas as well. And a Happy New Year if we don't hear from you again. But let's go ahead and take that. Let's tell you what, let's take that next break right now. Get some more of the calls going here right after that. So again, if you want to call in, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound is slow after a crash at Reynolds exit. 2 right lanes are blocked due to that accident, and westbound I-10 is slow from Hawkins to the Patriot, 27-minute delays. I-10 eastbound, Trans Mountain to the Patriots, a 7-minute delay. Global Reach southbound from Liberty Expressway down to Montana Avenue, 15-minute delays. And road debris blocking the center lane, Trans Mountain eastbound after Railroad. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
The Where Were You in 92 podcast brings you back to the year of big butt anthems, achy breaky hearts, and grunge. Take an audio trip back in time to relive the wildest, most eclectic, and controversial 12 months in music through interviews with critics, industry bigwigs, and the artists themselves.
Take me back to a magical time when music was magic, and I had completely burned that to the ground.
Listen to Where Were You in 92 on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
I didn't think it was possible to meet someone like Susan. We just clicked after realizing we each have a strong sense of self and share the same core values in life.
After taking our advanced personality test, Daniel and Susan matched on Silver Singles, the secure dating site for 50-plus singles who know what they want. Sign up today at silversingles.com/date. That's silversingles.com/date.
Paid actors representing true customer testimonials. Names have been changed.
Look through your children's eyes to see the true magic of a forest. It's a storybook world for them. You look and see a tree. They see the wrinkled face of a wizard with arms outstretched to the sky. They see treasure in pebbles. They see a windy path that could lead to adventure. And they see you, their fearless guide to this fascinating world.
Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
So I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And the many conversations going on in those outlets can be very interesting indeed, including Marky Mendingo declaring his love for the show after talking about using slingshots, fabricating slingshots for New Year's trinkets. Good luck with that, and also open carry considerations. So, to my understanding, at this point in time, and I'm not a lawyer, and definitely don't take this as legal advice, but of course, Texas has constitutional/permitless carry, however you want to describe it, and New Mexico has had permitless open carry for a while now, and also the whole in New Mexico, to my understanding, again, my interpretation, that your car is an extension of your home, and so you still have the same like rights to have property in it in whatever fashion you do, kind of thing. So, I mean, if you want to, you certainly can, to my understanding, on either side of the borderland, other side of the state lines in our borderland here. But, I mean, do what works for you. And I would firmly recommend that in any circumstance, you still end up getting licensed, because if you ever think that you're going to need to use the implement in the manner it is designed to be, particularly for self-defense purposes, you're going to want to have a lot of qualifications on your side that you can point to saying, hey, yeah, that's how I knew this was correct, proper, etc. Because even if you do have the license, it's definitely not a Rambo badge. But there are some people out there that like make concealed carry, quote unquote, badges or badge holders, and there's a whole lot of questions I would have for someone who would actually buy what. I'm not necessarily faulting an organization for like saying I think I can make money off of this, but actually buying them, I would have several questions for anyone doing that. So, I mean, yeah, do what works for you, but just love to know the thought process. Anyway, of course, we know those phone lines open now, and on Hilrueda saying, yeah, and get insurance. Not a bad plan, I gotta say, given that the even just unholstering it in a situation in which you feel the need to could lead to very serious, because even if there isn't a shoot, and Mark Mandingo, yeah, full coverage, that's probably a good idea. I should probably look into it myself, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, even just unholstering it as a deterrent can open you up to liability. And as a phrase that was drilled into me and needs to be shared out there more widely, lack of criminal prosecution does not provide immunity from civil penalties. Meaning, even if you don't get arrested or charged, you can still get sued. And that's where the insurance and coverage come in. Absolutely. Maybe talk more about that in the new year as well. In any case, let's go to those phone lines now. The number to call again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Frankie and Messi on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
I love it. I am so beyond giddy. I got to tell you something. This upcoming New Year is shaping up to be the greatest New Year ever. Right out of the box. We're talking about conservative kooks like Muggery, Thuggery, Taylor, and the rest of her crowd eating one another. Then you got the Donnie Dotard doofus about ready for a straitjacket to go to the funny farm, and then bewildered Ben is about ready to go bonkers over the election. Now, having said that, I want to talk again. Well, first off, let me back up. Now, use the word asylum. Yes. A textbook definition of asylum is people that are being politically persecuted. Now, I don't see, check me if I'm wrong on this, Andrew, and anybody else out there in the Southwest border region, that every single one of these people are politically persecuted. I don't believe it. And then, having said that, now, I mentioned this once before, and I want your opinion on this also, right? Now, this cannot be sustained, Andrew. I'm saying again, as I once mentioned before, right? We, the United States, or the president, Joe Biden, or whomever, need to get in front of the United Nations and then actually declare, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we know we love you. You want to come to the United States for all the different reasons, but guess what? We just this is almost like biblical again. The hotel is closed or the inn, and you can only live in the manger. Biblical stuff. No. You people out there need to take care of your own country. And here's where I'm saying again, the United Nations, along with the United States, needs to go out there and say, okay, we are going to go out and wreck this incredible dictatorships in your countries, put in a responsible government, and you people stay there and fix your own country. Now, what do you think about that?
I mean, that's definitely been a part of the conversation that, I mean, there are, okay, start off with what you brought up at the initial part there about the actual definition of asylum there. The USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, does put it has a two-part definition for who qualifies for it. It puts refugee status, and then asylum is essentially another layer over that. And for the actual definition of refugee, then they refer to 8 U.S. Code, so Chapter 8, Section 1101 of, again, Title 8, Aliens and Nationality, and it defines refugee specifically. And unfortunately, I'm going to dump a bit of legalese here, but just to see, since you asked the question, they're saying the term refugee means any person who is outside any country of such person's nationality, or in the case of a person having no nationality, is outside any country in which such person last habitually resided, and who is unwilling or unable to return to, and is unable or unwilling to avail himself or herself of protection of that country because of persecution or well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. So that's the baseline refugee definition. And so asylum is, an asylum seeker would be someone that, based on their essentially refugee status, is seeking whatever accommodation is available in the country that they are then applying for it for. Of course, we're talking about the United States and what comes with it here more specifically, but that's kind of the baseline definition of it. And as has been noted in previous administrations and that by others, that having bad situations or not liking where you come from is not necessarily technically a part of it here, though, of course, there is the added layer that, particularly from Mexico or other Central and South American countries, there are places where it's not necessarily governmental, but there could be more specifically that there is no governmental presence, and so the de facto control of the area fall into criminal organizations. That's where the murkiness comes in, and why the asylum hearings are a critical, if difficult, long-running, etc. Process of it here. But so to your exact idea, you're talking about there about dealing with the other countries. That has been something that we've, at the very least on this program, talked about for years now, including previous interviews we've done with the Hope Border Institute on some of the studies they've done and what have been referred to at that point in time, and I think still are, the sending communities, the places that are the points of origin, because these people aren't just emerging out of the ether, out of the nothingness, fully formed and ready to go, but with no past behind them. They're coming from places. And so the research that's been done on those places and the situations there are again, kind of what I described there, where there is almost no government. So to say that it's government oppression would be almost kind of like wrong from the get-go, because what do you do if there is no government and yet some of the verifiable and definable cases that have been a part of this that I have had personal knowledge or experience of involve things that I literally cannot even begin to describe on the radio here. Like there's no way I can even beginning to get to the actual descriptions of it, besides to say egregious and unimaginable bodily harm and torture being applied to people because of their lack of cooperation with the regimes or the cartels or what have you. Again, there's not even a way I can try to parse that more closely than that, because it is so, even trying to recall it right now is abhorrent to the mind here. So there are horrific situations out there, and people fleeing that are definitely due consideration. But again, there is further ways to be talked about this, about, okay, then what do we do to mitigate this? Again, there's no reasonable person that I'm aware out there that is saying that, this is a good thing. This whole system of people traipsing thousands of miles, having to pay thousands of dollars, and they may even still be held hostage at the end of it and go through difficult, dangerous situations. That's a good way for this to happen. There's no reasonable person I've talked to that says, yeah, that's how this should happen, or that, we like this. It's been okay, if we want this to, focus on immigration, have it happen different ways, that we need to have the better systems, more simplified, or, there's been the whole idea of having, application centers, for lack of a better term, in other countries where people can, submit for asylum and await there for their claims to go through. But yeah, another conversation has definitely been had about, okay, why is it that these other areas, communities, etc., are in such dire straits that people feel that taking those kind of extreme measures I just described is the solution? So I think it's kind of twofold. A, there's definitely issues on the ground there, and then B, there's definitely a whole marketing regime about, oh no, if you give us the money, by again the cartels, they keep putting a whole lot of blame for a whole lot of this on the cartels, coyotes, that whole system and structure, as we got to convince somehow for them to give us their money to do this. So let's just play it up as much as we can. Hell, let's just see what we can get from it. Let's get our marketing going. Absolutely.
Well, my rejoinder to that, this is a bunch of mishmash. But you either have, this is a bunch of intermingling of the understanding of asylum versus refugee. And I heard what you said about that. But it is either you are coming in asylum seeking or your refugee status. You can't have both. Now, I heard what you said. It's just impossible to contemplate how this is possible. Again, I go back. It is not sustainable, Andrew. You just can't have people coming in from wherever into the United States where we got our own problems, for crying out loud. I just don't get that. And by the way, one last thing I want to say. Hey, befuddled Ben, elections have consequences. If you don't like the way we do elections in the United States of America, go find yourself a plane ticket to Russia. That's all I want to say.
All right. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
And don't forget to keep me on.
Fair enough. You'll see if we can keep you on the line there. Still keep calls going. So we will still be taking those calls right now. So if you want to get on the line, of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSF. We'll go ahead and take that break now. Get back on the line with more of the calls, more of the conversation, more of everything about what affects us here in the Borderland. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. El Paso police are investigating an officer-involved shooting in East El Paso. Police say officers from Pebble Hills Regional Command Center responded to the block of Kira Cristel in reference to a shooting just after 6:30 yesterday evening. When officers arrived, they found one man dead. One man and woman were transported to the hospital. However, police did not say the severity of any injuries they sustained. Police say that there were multiple people at the home at the time of the encounter, and during the encounter, they say there was an officer that did use their firearm. Investigators are still looking into what led to this shooting. We do know that no arrests have been made at this time. And of course, this is an ongoing investigation. And as soon as we learn more, you can count on us to keep you posted on any updates you receive, both on air and online at CBS4Local.com. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound is slow after a crash at Reynolds exit. 2 right lanes are blocked due to that accident, and westbound I-10 is slow from Hawkins to the Patriot, 27-minute delays. I-10 eastbound, Trans Mountain to the Patriots, a 7-minute delay. Global Reach southbound from Liberty Expressway down to Montana Avenue, 15-minute delays. And road debris blocking the center lane, Trans Mountain eastbound after Railroad. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our Tuesday's pretty much our last day where we have some pretty quiet weather because we've got 3 systems coming in through the rest of this week and into the weekend. Each one will continue to bring in stronger winds, a slight drop in temperatures, as well as a chance for some rain. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. When dining out or shopping at the grocery store, ask for sustainable seafood. By choosing sustainable seafood, you can help reduce overfishing, bycatch, loss of top predators, illegal fishing, and other harmful environmental impacts. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org. This report is sponsored by Think It Up.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of housing discrimination.
It's so wrong. But who has the power to stop this?
You do. The law is on your side. If you've been discriminated against because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status, file a complaint with HUD. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
Visit HUD.gov/fair housing, a public service message from HUD and the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, doing the whole short week thing here this week. Yeah, what it means is that doing the live shows today, tomorrow, and Thursday, back off on Friday for the, again, observed holiday. So, and then we'll be back on the following Tuesday. So a couple of 4-day weekends, basically what it amounts to around here, this neck of the woods. But don't worry, we're still keeping the flame going, still keeping the discussions going on. Still, of course, talking about the things that affect us here in El Paso. So if you're joined in with us and tuning in however works for you, more than welcome to do so. Of course, comments coming in online, such as Louis Pinato, RJ, and RJJ, Robert Gable as well, and also dropping those likes and reacts. Austin Redfern, Angel Rueda, Ion Grimm, Richard Janicek, Marky Mandingo, Chris Martin, James Holmes, Robert Haynes, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. Do appreciate that. And interesting other conversations going on, including some things about looting in other parts of the country. I haven't seen that particular part of it yet, but again, have focuses more or less in our local region as the things that affect us here. But well, Thursday is coming. We'll be doing the whole call-in show thing on Thursday, Throwdown Thursday, I guess is what we're sticking with there. So of course we can delve into those things then if you want to bring them up. But in any case, let's back to those phone lines we got right now. Again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, talk about being invaded. How about Trump's pal Putin's invasion of Ukraine and his killing of tens of thousands of innocent civilians? This Vladimir Putin is really a bad man. He hacked our election and helped that traitorous moron Trump get elected president back in 2016. So part of the big news last week was Ukrainian President Zelensky's address to Congress.
Sure.
I mean, it was great. He got a big and repeating standing O's, except for that odious Marjorie Taylor Greene and then that Matt Gaetz guy, those nutty nationalists and anti-globalists. Anyway, his speech to give thanks to the American people and the representatives of the American people for all our support for his people's freedom and independence was great. This attorney and former comedian, he's proved to be a great leader whose countrymen have resisted one of the world's largest militaries and Trump's pal and patron Putin's invasion and destruction of his country. Now, in two recent interviews on the United States support for Ukraine, Trump's former National Security Affairs advisor, John Bolton, said that if Trump had been reelected, Putin would have taken Kyiv a long time ago. And he also commended President Biden for leading the free world to resist this aggression and invasion by America's foreign adversary since the end of World War II, Russia and the Trump penetrator Putin. So, I mean, there's people who are suffering big time at the hands of a tyrant, of a dictator, who the last president wanted to be buddies with, bragged about having a bromance with him and everything, wanted to be friends with him and everything. And look at what this guy did. Now there's intelligence saying that the quid pro quo was that the Russians wanted to hear from Trump that if they took Mariupol, Ukraine, that they would just wink and nod. So we're going to see and learn more and more as time goes on how again Russia and Trump were in it together. Putin was helping Trump become the president to divide this country. And he did a great job of doing this. And to put a useful idiot in the White House that was going to denigrate NATO, get the United States out of NATO. And what ended up happening with his invasion, it brought NATO together. And it got Sweden and Finland to join NATO. It's worked completely against Putin. He's a bad guy. Anybody who supports Putin.
I mean, I'll agree with you on that point there about not, I mean, I've said it for a long time now. It's one of the reasons that I don't think I can ever visit Russia, at least not in any of the current political climates. Not that I was particularly interested in doing so, but I mean, I would like to have the option to see the sites if things ever calm down. But yeah, I don't trust Vladimir Putin as far as I can throw him. We brought it up last week, actually. The Kursk incident came to mind. I had a reason to see a small piece on that here and remembering how that was handled, both in terms of, like the largest, if not the second largest nuclear sub that was in the water at the time, just after a failed torpedo test, sinking, but still having some alive. Just the whole debacle and kerfuffle that involved around that there was, I mean, kind of, you can see echoes of that in the modern point here about how pride and the idea of being the biggest and the best, but then severely lacking in the execution has been the hallmark of the entire Russian experience going into Ukraine there. But as much has been said before, I mean, sure, if you want a fantasy football league, what would have happened with the invasion at that point in time? I mean, of course, the idea has been brought up previously that the invasion didn't happen under Trump. So if there was truly going to be, even though, I mean, you got to go back to 2014, so even at the end of the Obama administration, when you could really pinpoint the start of this whole experience and the coming in of it. I mean, there was the Maidan Square and the soft revolution that happened at that point against the presidents who was trying to bring them closer to Russia. So, I mean, this conflict has its roots in better part of a decade ago at this point. And to say that, well, this is what I expected what the guy would have done here, and I think all these investigations will show what he would have done, that doesn't quite bear out in my mind here. If you don't think he would have done a good job with it, sure, you're entitled to that opinion here, but I don't think that the response would have been much different than it is right now because, I mean, there's been military aid happening for a while, and yes, that was the focus of one of the impeachment efforts going into it, but it was never at this level as it was. And this is very much a fight over there so we don't have to fight it here kind of mentality that is very obvious. Not so much stated, but read between the lines even a little bit, and it's very obvious that that is the focus on the tens of billions of dollars that have already been sent and the tens of billions more that have been promised to Ukraine in order to essentially leverage our industrial might and the industrial might of the West against the industrialized, I'm going to call it attempts being put forth by Russia, but we were seeing potentially more of the whole, bilateral nature of the world coming through in this and how the industrial alignments happen can be very significant coming out of this. So if you think that this is something that, it totally would have gone not this way under the previous president, I mean, your dislike of him is well known at this point here. So I guess I'm not surprised at your analysis, but I don't really have seen, even if there was a second presidency of Trump, I mean, there are some out there that say that this wouldn't have even happened. So it's as much about, your guess is as good as mine what would have happened, but the situation we are in right now, Vladimir Putin still saber rattling and looking to, I mean, he would love for NATO to come in, so I'll give him an excuse to unleash nukes. I do think at this point here, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but then again, everything in this situation is, but he wants his will done, and he wants to be able to control those multiple overland and easy sea routes into the Russian heartland. There's this whole demographic view of it about what has been the focus of not even just Russia as it is now, or even under the USSR, but going back to the Russian Empire times, of which that sense still even really was under the USSR, more specifically about the control here. So, I mean, this is way more complicated than saying, well, one person that I didn't like that was elected was bad, and therefore this contributed to this. I'm going to call that maybe not the total picture there, but you're entitled to your opinion. So thanks for the point in the call. For what it's worth, you have a good one there. Hope you had a good Christmas as well. With that, we're going to go ahead and take that last break. So, well, okay, I think we can squeeze in one more call on the line here. Again, if you call in the middle of a segment, you might get popped up live, so be ready for it here. So we got one more call on the line here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hi, this is Kevin from the East Side.
Hey there, Kevin. What's on your mind?
I called up our Congresswoman Escobar today and spoke to one of her people and told them that I'm not happy with this policy. I think it's from the Biden administration. I'm not sure who it's from, but whoever it's from, in my opinion, it's wrong and it's criminal. To take people who are looking for shelter, these refugees, immigrants, whatever you want to call it,
Sure.
and throw them out in the cold that we had the other week just because they don't have a paper from Border Patrol. This is, akin to what happened at the My Lai massacre. That, okay, it's not my fault, this is the policy, and I was given orders, et cetera, et cetera. No, these are human beings. And, okay, I don't believe that these people belong in our country. I firmly believe that, and they should be sent back to their country of origin. However, in sub-zero temperatures, to take a person and tell him or her that you're not going to come into this facility because you don't have a piece of paper, and throw them out in the cold and say, fend for yourself. This is un-American. This is unhuman. And I can't countenance that. And I told told her clerk, please tell her we need to do something about this, because this is something that should be outlawed. It's atrocious. What do you think about that?
I'll say I agree with you pretty much entirely on that point there. I mean, there were those questions that we had started having last week as some of the bigger shelters. I mean, there have been, of course, the, like Annunciation House, those other organizations that were doing the, temporary sheltering, that their standard resources were getting outstripped, and even those of, like, say, the Opportunity Center for the Homeless. And so then we had these bigger shelters, the Convention Center, like you were talking about, or the couple of EPISD schools that are going to be coming online for that purpose here. And so, but we're still seeing people out on the streets. And so that question came up about, why is this? Why are people not going to the shelter? So the answer coming out, starting late last week and then early this week, because it's, of course, our first show since then. So the first chance we've had to talk about it, that some people are being turned away is surprising, and I will agree, upsetting in probably not exactly equal measure, probably more towards the end of it here, because if we're saying that, sure, we have major need for resources. I mean, okay, even if you don't care about the humanity of people, which is not an argument, an argument I'm interested in having with anyone, but for anyone out there that even thinks that way, the idea of having people sleeping out on the streets and having to fend for themselves, so to speak, is not a good situation to have on our streets, because that's when you start getting people that are desperate to deal with things and either dying on the streets or having to do what they need to survive, that I would not at all blame them for. So I gotta say that, yeah, this situation being allowed to, even after the policy failures at the border have been numerous and evident, but once they are here, the idea, I mean, the situation for the city of El Paso and those nonprofit organizations has been to keep them moving, so to speak. But given the transportation issues we already were talking about, and now the, again, logistical, environmental, what's going on with the temperatures out there, yeah, to say that, well, they don't qualify, therefore tough luck, yeah, that is an entirely unsatisfactory answer, to say the least.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. I appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate that very much. And thank you for letting me know what you were doing, reach out. I appreciate the example being set there about people not just griping about it, but talking about it with those that are in positions to hopefully do something about it as well. So I greatly appreciate that as well.
Thank you, sir. Have a good
All
day.
right. Hey, you have a good one. Hope you had a good Christmas, and Happy New Year if we don't talk with you before then as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, that's a concerning situation, and one that there are more shelters being set up, some on a more temporary basis. Yeah, that's a bad situation, and one that cannot be allowed to continue in such a way. If we don't expect it, I mean, it's not even just the primary thing for me is this is human suffering that is being, I mean, as much as this is a man-made situation, then amping it up to the next level because of paperwork concerns is what are we doing at that point? But then also the idea of, if you are then leaving people en masse to be desperate on our streets, do you think there's going to be necessarily a guaranteed positive outcome of that? And if so, If you think that there's not going to be, why is that being allowed to continue? No level of that makes sense to me, I will say, and I will fully agree with. So, okay, let's go ahead and take that last break. A couple of closing thoughts for you for today. A couple of things that I want to put forth to you to consider for a discussion coming up tomorrow, specifically about biggest stories of the year. Yeah, obviously immigration is going to be one, but let's also get another one or two to be mentioned out there. So stay tuned. We'll talk El Paso after this break, closing out the show and talking about what we got coming up for you after this break. So stay tuned. We'll talk El Paso after this here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Stop and go traffic remains on the I-10 westbound from the Hunter Viscount exit to the Patriot with 10-minute delays after an earlier crash. Cleared now. All lanes are back open. I-10 westbound at Reynolds. I-10 eastbound is slow with 5-minute delays from Trans Mountain to the Patriot. A stalled truck is blocking the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound at Piedras, and a disabled semi is blocking the right lane on eastbound Montwood at Joe Battle. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
We welcome open-minded individuals.
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
With open arms.
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
For open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world. Wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at kcsmradio.com.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
Most of the time, traffic is pretty good. But there are times when traffic can be pretty bad. No, I mean like really bad. Almost, but more like an asteroid's gonna hit the city and everyone's trying to get out of town at once and nobody's car is moving and people are running down the highway clutching their kids and whatever belongings they can grab. Yep, now you got it. It's times like these you need your severe traffic station. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Want to get 7 streaming services for the price of 1? Sign up for a smart bundle that'll stimulate your brain. Featuring Curiosity Stream with the best documentary films and TV shows. Nebula for thought-provoking content from your favorite creators. And One Day University with the best lectures from the country's top professors. And so much more. It's perfect for families with all kinds of interests and great content for kids. It also makes a perfect holiday gift. Now at 40% off, get all 7 services for only $3.50 a month. Sign up now at smartbundle.com.
Getting a news feed on your phone while driving
makes driving more difficult.
This is dangerous. Getting a news feed without a computer or mobile device?
It would be impossible.
Unless, of course, you get your live news feeds at the top and bottom of the hour.
It's easy.
Traffic and weather all day.
It's as simple as that.
Trending stories tend to change.
Every minute of every day.
Twice an hour, we'll feed your curiosity.
Stay informed. Shouldn't we listen? They're hungry.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
This is Staples.
So rumor has it that Staples has everything I need to ship.
Mm-hmm. We have all the shipping supplies and services you need.
Boxes?
Yep.
Mailers?
Yeah, and we have UPS here in store.
Huh. What will Staples think of next?
Right?
No, seriously, I'm asking, what will they think of next?
Staples is your one-stop shipping destination. Now get 50% off shipping boxes, mailers, or tubes when you buy 5 of the same item in-store or online with 1-hour pickup. Staples, the best-kept secret in shipping. Ends 12/31. Exclusions apply. Visit staplesconnect.com/shipping for details.
Did you know that driving under the influence of marijuana is illegal? Driving high will get you a DUI. And if you're wondering if law enforcement can tell you're driving high, well, everyone else can. Friends,
I can tell you drove high.
parents,
I can tell when you drive high.
relatives.
I can tell. You drove here high, didn't you?
So what makes you think law enforcement can't? I can tell.
If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Just a couple of programming reminders for you all. We are going to be doing, again, the short week this week. Live shows tomorrow and Thursday. Thursday will be our open line show for the week. Throwdown Thursday, I think, is what we've more or less settled on. So, yeah, all the other things that have been mentioned kind of in part on this show or beyond, that'll be the place for that. Otherwise, tomorrow we're going to be visiting with our news partners there at KFOX 14, Estefania Seifert, investigative reporter with the same about some of the biggest stories of the year and, of course, ongoing investigative reporting and things like that. So more to talk about, more going on for you tomorrow with the program as well as calling my shot. Now, I want to delve into more about what could possibly be done. Maybe not totally Title 42-ish, but a whole lot more that needs to be done when we're talking about these border security and immigration situations. So, at least some of the points of, and of course, the daily news, the big things we need to talk about, see if any more people are stranded across the country from the borderland here. I don't know if I actually mentioned it or not, but there was at least one Borderland high school, the Pebble Hills High School Band. They were stranded in Chicago as part of the whole Southwest Airlines thing going on. So good luck to them. Hope they are able to make it back to there here shortly. But if you're on the road, in the skies, however you may be, since you can listen to this across the country using the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, I hope you all are staying safe out there and really, really, really considering and maybe reevaluating your travel plans here. So good luck to you, as to all of us, as we navigate the end of this year and get into the next one. Looking forward to 2023. We're definitely going to be talking more about the legislative session. We've only began to scratch the surface with it, but we'll talk more about that as we get closer to it. So in any case, that is going to do it for us for today. I do want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, chime in, add your 2 cents, whatever way you did it, whatever worked for you. I appreciate you, because having these conversations, talking about the things that affect us here and, yes, beyond as we get into it, is important to me, and I think more people should be doing that, but regardless of doing it on this program or not, actually talking about the issues and not just saying, oh, well, that stinks, someone should do something about that, like to yourself grumbling. Actually talking about it, that's the basis of most of these things. Anyway, that'll do it for us for today. Have a safe one out there, and make sure, again, to as Falco Menace saying, there's always risk, but I mean, take into consideration, and good luck to anyone that's been on a Southwest flight or planning to be on one more specifically. So until next time, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Stop and go traffic remains on the I-10 westbound from the Hunter Viscount exit to the Patriot with 10-minute delays after an earlier crash. Cleared now. All lanes are back open. I-10 westbound at Reynolds. I-10 eastbound is slow with 5-minute delays from Trans Mountain to the Patriot. A stalled truck is blocking the right shoulder, I-10 eastbound at Piedras, and a disabled semi is blocking the right lane on eastbound Montwood at Joe Battle. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
I never write reviews, but Navage is so amazing, I had to leave one. Nothing's ever cleared out my sinuses as well. I'm blown away by how Navage works. That's a review from Carrie, and it's one of over 100,000 online testimonials praising Navage. I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I've talked about flushing out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs. How Navage's powered suction can help you breathe better, and how your nose is the body's air filter, and Navage will clean it out. But don't take my word for it. What do people like Chad say, who wrote, Navage has helped clear out my nasal passages every single night. My wife's